Now that I've finished installing my jacks, I have to accept the grim reality that the frame needs to be restored. It's a rust bucket. Not a good purchase after all. It needs to be addressed or I will just regret that forever. So I've started at the back bumper, took out trailer hitch, fuel tank, and one member. It was the easiest place to start, and a good place to develop a routine to address this cold hard reality. I've already developed a good technique, I think. Tried some different things, figured out which tools I needed. So now that I've painted the back, which is you can visible in the top right hand corner there, I'm moving forward. I'm going to get all the cables out of my way, strip the frame down as much as possible. Basically, if something isn't riveted, I'm taking it out. Most of the stuff's rusty. I always try the tool first, but if that don't work, I'll just use a zippy cut. Got to pull the harness out of the way on this side. A couple of cross members. And remember where everything goes. I'd already marked all of the harness, labeled everything. I did not want to be doing this. And it's the worst possible conditions to be doing this in. I've got about 3 feet of clearance. I've got it jacked up as high as I can to work underneath. But this is probably not the best way to go about it. And it's just the hole I've dug for myself. I've already had the suspension rebuilt by Abbey Springs. So it would be easy to disconnect everything. But out in the field, like under these conditions, that would suck. Really what I should have done, if I'd assessed it properly from the beginning, I would have walked away from the project. But now I'm into it, so here we go. But really the way to do this is jack the body off the frame, roll the frame out, strip the frame down of everything, and sandblast the frame. The best way to go about it for sure. Or even dip the frame if you can afford it. Find a place to do it. So sandblasting isn't going to work in this situation. If you're going to sandblast something, you have to strip it right down. Every component that comes off that isn't riveted has to come off. And you have to do it in a humidity controlled environment. If you do it outside and you don't seal what you've sandblasted that day, it'll be rusty by the next day. So sandblasting wasn't an option. So I'm down to wire brushes, grinders with wire wheels on the end, drill with a wire wheel, and scrapers in a really restrictive space. All these wires have been 20 years old. Sit in the same place, mounted in the same way, so they could easily crack. Moving them around, so I'm not pulling on them, I'm pushing them gently, not reefing on anything. Gotta be patient or you'll create more headaches down the road. Not a lot of space to work. This is in August. I started this in August 2022. I picked a section to work on. In this particular video, it's about 24 hours of video I took here. I cut it down to about an hour. The process, break down the process. So I'm working between the front axle Well, actually, I'm working between the rear axle and the firewall. So about 8 feet of frame that I'm going to work on. The idea being that a little bit of audio so you know what I have to listen to. I cut the rest of the audio out. Nobody needs to hear that for the next hour. So that's the technique that I pretty much came up with that does the best possible job. Hammering, breaks away rust, chips. Then the bar, getting into smaller areas, breaking away the rust, freeing up chips. Also takes the paint off nicely, and especially useful at getting rid of the undercoating. It was undercoated, but they did a really crap job when they did the undercoating. That's kind of the procedure. Hammer, chip, grinder, wire wheel on a grinder, cup, wire cup, and then down to brushes and scrapers, different types of brushes, get into every nooks and cranny. I probably spent an hour just where I'm sitting. It's a very long process. I think doing this section of frame was some 30 hours. So the reason I break it down into sections is I want to be able to get the rust off, get the frame cleaned, and get it painted in one cycle. I don't want to leave it for a week. I want to be able to do it while I can. So I have 3 days in this instance to do this. So I spent a couple of days stripping stuff out of the way, then grinding, brushing, chipping, hammering. Just this section of work, by the time I get it painted, is some 30 hours of work. And that's 1/8 of the job that needs to be done overall of axles, frames, everything else. So very long, meticulous process. And it's hot out. So I'm in the shade, so that's a good thing. And what's funny is, as miserable as these conditions are for doing this, this is way better than stuff we hit in the field, in industry, in different mills. There's no weird stuff dripping on me, no chemicals. I'm not sitting in a puddle of goop. So it's actually quite pleasant compared to the normal environment we're used to working in the mills, refineries. And don't look at the whole project. Break it down to the area you're working in. Don't think about time, just be hammering. chipping, sanding. I'd already washed this frame with the pressure washer before I parked the truck, so I'm surprised at how much dust there is on there and everything still. I did a really good job with the high pressure washer, but obviously didn't have much of an effect. Not what I wanted to be doing, but has to be done, or I'll regret it. Also, a good way to assess if the frame's worth saving. So I did find that I lost probably 1/64 of material all over the frame. But other than that, there's no cracks in the frame, no holes through the frame. If there was holes in the frame, I would have to deal with that or just decide to walk away. That's the thing too, if I'd walked away from this project, I probably could find another frame and I would have all of these components that would fit on that frame. So that's a nice thing about commercial vehicles, is they are easy to rebuild and reuse other parts. It's not like the consumer's market where they're always reinventing the wheel. It's a commercial frame. It has one job to do. It's heavy duty, so nothing special. This is a first generation on this particular frame, MT45, 2002, I think was the first year they had it. I don't know what MT45 stands for, but material transport frame, I guess. I'm not sure. It's commonly used for the box trucks, walk-in vans they're called, step-in vans. A lot of people know them as Grumman's. The MT45 is typically hydraulic brakes, GVW of 19,000. And then they go up to the MT55, which can have hydraulic or air brakes and a capacity of 22,000 gross vehicle weight. It's quite a nasty process. The little wires break off the cup and they come flying at you. I pulled a few of those out of my head. I couldn't wear a mask and work. I couldn't wear a face shield and work in these conditions. Just no room. So I was happy just having the face mask and eyeglasses. I can peel the other stuff out of my porcupine face. Thing about that respiratory mask I'm wearing, it's definitely more effective than the cloth mask or the N92s or whatever that they were pushing during COVID. And this mask is way better, and it still won't stop biologicals. So just so you know. So I worked on this for 3 days. 2 of those days were chipping away to rust. Basically just doing 1 inch at a time, doing it from multiple angles, and just keep hammering and chipping. I'd have more tools variety to use if I had air, but I don't have the volume of air to work with other tools. A needle scaler would be a great tool if you're not going to sandblast, but you got to get one. You got to have lots of air.